hope I'm not alone when it comes to thinking stuff like this just isn't that exciting, especially for the viewers, and definitely doesn't emphasize creativity, which should be something we are embracing more in our competitive scene. So in today's Hot Take Thursday, let's discuss our competitive format for Legends of Runeterra, Riot Lock. What's going on YouTube? It's your boy Optima, back with a brand new episode of Hot Take Thursday, and this is a series where the coffee is hot but the takes are even hotter. And as always, we will be doing a little bit of ranting about something surrounding the Legends of Runeterra community that we kind of have an issue with or just aren't the most fond of. And in today's installment, we're going to be talking about Riot Lock. And Riot Lock is going to be the current competitive format in place for Legends of Runeterra. And if you're unfamiliar with exactly how Riot Lock operates, it's going to be the exact same as all the other formats in the way that it does. Obviously, the three decks there's three decks that you bring to a matchup against someone, and you play in a best of three, and they get to ban one of those three decks, and then you're forced to play the other two. If you win a game with one of them, then you're forced to play the other, and whoever wins two of those three games first wins. But what differentiates it from the other ones is in Riot Lock, you are allowed to have three of one region as long as the secondary region isn't copied. So you can have Targon Shurima as long as the next Targon deck has like Demacia and doesn't have Shurima again. And then the other thing is you cannot repeat champions either, but you can repeat all the other cards as much as you want as long as you're not repeating that secondary region again. And unfortunately, this is a format that is very exploitable in the sense of if there are good spells or followers in the in a deck, you can just throw in three of those in all three of those decks if you feel so. And obviously the user we just highlighted from the Duels of Shurima 2 tournament was obviously doing that. He liked the Unto Dust card, the new Nightfall card that really has pushed Nightfall to that next threshold, and he was obviously using that card in three different decks, and they're pretty much probably three different aggro decks, and just using them on Doom Beast so that he can use Doom Beast's very nice drain effect. So something that in this particular scenario isn't the worst, but when you start thinking of 9 Hushes, 9 Noxian Fervors, things start to get a little kind of okay. This is a little bit of an issue. These are some good cards that all kind of that function in a very particular way, and you can make decks to make this work around those decks. So yeah, this is something we should be discussing more, and I don't know why this isn't being discussed more. There was a recent tweet that I'll get over to that kind of brought it a little bit more to the limelight. But overall, we're really just not discussing this enough, and I thought this would be a great time to do so. If you are new to the channel, make sure you get subbed up so you don't miss out on any future episodes of Hot Take Thursday, as well as all the other awesome content we have on this channel. I'm trying to go hard for you guys while I have the opportunity, so definitely any and all support is greatly appreciated. You can leave a like if you feel like you want to, and you can also definitely leave a comment if you have your own take on what we should be doing with our competitive format in Legends of Runeterra. I would love to hear from you guys. I definitely don't like these discussions ending at the end of the video. I want to hear from you guys, so feel free to do so. I would greatly appreciate it. Let's discuss the other formats. So obviously we just said Riot Lock can't double up on champions, but you can have three of a region, but as long as the secondary region isn't being copied. So from there we have, let's go to Collection Lock. So Collection Lock is going to be where you can have three copies of a card, but you have to spread it out throughout the different decks that you have. So you can have 3 Hushes, but only 3. So there can't be 3 in the next region, but you can do 1 Hush in one deck, 1 in another, 1 in another. That's pretty much how Collection Lock would work. I don't know any, honestly, it's really hard to find information on a lot of this stuff, so I don't know if there's any other contingencies with Collection Lock. That's pretty much the one thing I noticed that kind of separates it. And then Card Lock is the one I'm actually most in favor of, and Card Lock would just be that you can't play this particular card in another deck at all. So whether it's a champion, whether it's a spell, if you're using Hush in one deck, you can't use Hush in that next deck. And that's one that I'm very, very fond of, because I think it would force people to be more creative. It would force people to have to team build more. And I'm fond of that. My favorite thing in card games is team building. It's so much fun to find new ideas, to experiment with new things, to do stuff. But If we allow people to not have to do that, then of course the easy route is going to be not doing that and to use these decks that have proven to be good and to try to emphasize that, because there's always going to be a superior region. So that's my inherent issue with Riot Log, is that there's always going to be that region that you're going to want to use multiple times. So for that exact reason, it would be nice to force people to not be able to lean on strategies like that so heavily. And then the last one's going to be region lock, and just that you cannot duplicate any regions at all. So if you're using target in one deck, you can't use it again in another deck. And I'm not as fond of that, because I do think there are certain decks that function very differently, that are in the same region. Like I would say that Nightfall functions very differently than the current Aurelion Sol Demacia deck that we're seeing a lot of. Yeah, to force people to not be able to use these, I think would be a little bit of a flaw. Or a little bit of not the brightest idea, but at the same time, at least it's still something that gives us a little bit more creativity, a little bit more fun, a little bit something more interesting to witness. I don't want to see target mirrors anymore. I don't want to see aggro mirrors anymore, or it's just fever faces going back and forth. Like let's force people to have to be a little bit more creative. I think that'd be fun. And I know. I'm waiting. All the casuals, this guy's a casual. This guy doesn't want to play the competitive scene. Like, what is this guy? I know. I get it. It's different from the competitive scene, but I feel like sometimes it's okay to stray away from the status quo. Just because something's currently the status quo doesn't mean we just have to accept it. Doesn't mean we just have to embrace it, especially if it seems like there's other options out there. And these are other formats that, once again, this information needs to be more out there. Why is it so hard to find definitions for these different formats? But either way, yeah, we should be willing and willing to hear out different ideas and different ways to approach the competitive scene, to keep things spicy, to keep things fun, to keep things innovative. I think these are all things that are not only good for the game, but are good for viewers. And if this game wants to grow, we need it to be entertaining for viewers. And I do think, to an extent, target mirrors aren't that entertaining. These aggro fever faces mirrors aren't that entertaining. People being able to run 9 rallies because they have 3 Demacia decks isn't that entertaining. Because let's think about it. You can actually do this. You can run. So we got Pirate Scouts, which is a legitimate deck, and it runs rally. We got J4, Jarvan, and Shin. That's a deck. It is Demacia Ionia, and it runs rally. And then we have, what's the last one? So I said Pirate Aggro, I said Shin J4. Then we have, Sand Scouts. We got Azir Demacia with Lucian. And that also runs rally, so you can literally run 3 legitimate aggro decks. Well, 2 of them are aggro. J4, Shin is more mid-range, but you can still run 3 decks that are relying on rally as a very huge combat trick to finish the game, or to put your opponent heavily behind the 8 ball. So that's an issue. Those all function the same way, or in similar ways. All those decks have a very kind of similar flow. The J4 Shin's a little bit different, but overall I think that's an issue, and it definitely makes it especially unfun to play against, when it's like, oh, my deck's weak against rally, but my opponent was able to play it in all 3 decks. So I guess this deck's just going to get exploited in this matchup. So we need to force people to not be able to do that. Another case would just be like Noxian Fervor, which is a card I've already been discussing, but you can run Spider Aggro. You can run like the what's the other one? Like, you can even run the Zero Noxus deck, and then you can run there's another one that's eluding me. What's the other Noxus deck that uses Fervor? You can run Teemo. You can run Teemo Noxus, and then you still got your Fervor. That is such an issue. All those decks function so similar. So it's just something we need to be willing to discuss more. And I don't think like we should just not be so accepting of what we're currently experiencing, especially if it's showing a little bit of flaws. And I think it currently is, but obviously this is just my take. Once again, would love to hear from you guys. But let's highlight the tweet that recently got a little bit of that brought things a little bit more to the forefront, which helped me want to discuss this. So here over on Twitter, this lovely platform known as Twitter, We had a tweet from Fresh Lobster, easily one of my favorite content creators. Definitely make sure to look him up and give him a follow. He is someone who provides awesome commentary on his plays as he plays. I learned so much from him. Probably the first competitive battler that I actually got into their content and learned a lot from him. Really awesome creator. And yeah, he said, as much as I enjoy the current meta on ladder, it also highlights the weaknesses of the Riot Lock format in tournaments. Being able to build lineups with 18 plus rallies or 9 decimates plus 9 fevers or fervors or triple target invoke with the throw up emoji seems pretty whack to me. Also makes banning redundant. Easily true. And yeah, it's just something we like. This is such an issue, especially now that we have these other really good rally cards that we're getting. Yeah, this is definitely an issue, and this is going to be highlighted in these upcoming tournaments. You're going to see this in seasonals, or you're going to see people playing 3 Targon decks. You're going to see people playing 3 Noxus aggro decks. You're going to see this. So this is something we need to address sooner rather than later. And yeah, he personally prefers collection or card lock, have been played and we're close to region lock in popularity and lineup variety. And yeah, that's what we want. We need more variety. We need to force people to also to diversify their skill set, because if you think about it, the regions all operate in somewhat of a different way at the end of the day. Like each one has kind of their little bit of identity, like Targon invokes, Noxus kind of aggro-y, Freljord being more mid-range or control. Like each region kind of has their little bit of things that differentiate them and give them an identity. So by forcing people to have to use these different regions more, or at least different cards, bare minimum, we can force people to have to diversify their skill set more, which I think will be better for the competitive scene in the long run. Some people have suggested ideas such as like a sideboard and stuff like that. I'm very against the sideboard. I just think that would kind of murky things up a little bit too much and would just be a little too different from what we've currently experienced. So like people would have to completely switch up their skill set to be able to adjust to that. So I'm not as big as a fan of that idea, especially too because I feel like if we go with a sideboard, then you got to go closed deck list, in my opinion. Like that's the way you kind of even those out, is then all right, well then you don't know what's in someone's deck, so then you're using the sideboard to help you kind of compensate for not knowing what in there, for not knowing what is in someone's deck. And I'm actually also a fan of that. I would love closed deck lists because it would also force people to, once again, it would force people to not bank so heavily on being the best Aesol Demacia player or being the best Trundle Lissandra control player, because they know that most people are going to bring that, considering that people know what's in your deck. So it comes down to who has the best, who can play the best deck the best, rather than who can team build. Like team building is so undervalued in our competitive scene right now, and it's very unfortunate. There's a lot of really awesome team builders who aren't super into competitive things or aren't the best competitive players because there's no emphasis on team building currently in our competitive scene. And I would like to see that change, but I don't want to go too far on that point because I know then I'll get called a casual even more, and more people will be like, oh my god, this guy with all these stupid ideas that are so far from competitive, like, oh my god. So yeah, but that, once again, I would just love team building to matter a little bit more. But we can also kind of go back, and even Mogwai, one of our biggest content creators in the community, also chimed in and said, yeah, format has always sucked in my opinion. Just make it so that you cannot play any region in more than one deck. We have 9 different regions, for crying out loud. So he's advocating for region lock. I'm not as big as a fan of that, but I would consider it more as we get more of the game. Maybe once we have all of our regions in this game, then I would consider region lock more. I'm not as big as a fan of region lock overall though, because I do think there are decks within regions that operate very differently. So saying like, oh, even though Nightfall is so much different than Aesol Demacia, you can't play that. Like, I'm not as big as a fan of that because, yeah, there are decks that operate very, very, very differently that are in the same region. Even, like, let's just, as an example, like Ashe LeBlanc midrange operates very differently than Trundle Lissandra control. So if someone wants to bring those 2 decks, I think they should. But I would still advocate for this more than what we currently have. So I'm still willing to give this a shot, give this a chance. But we also need Shurima to actually have an identity if we're going to consider this. Like, let's wait until some of the like regions like Shurima have an identity, that Ionia isn't literally just Lee Sin and deny. Let's wait until some of these regions are a little bit more fleshed out before we really consider region lock, in my opinion. And I actually want to go over to a tweet that was all the way back in February from the Runeterra decks profile. They retweet a bunch of really awesome decks all the time. Definitely consider giving them a follow. Really cool account. And I've been following them pretty much since I got into the competitive scene. And they had a tweet, yeah, all the way back from February 25th where they were discussing this. And someone had a really good point in the comment section I just thought was definitely worth going over. And this is also going to be a little bit shorter of a video, and I hope you guys don't mind. But yeah, what Runeterra decks had to say was just, what do you guys think is the best format for open tournaments? I want to put up 500 for the community, starting with either North America or Europe. And yeah, a lot of people sounded off in the comment section here. One dude said, Riot lock. I know it's not optimal, but at this point, Riot is not going to change their format, and we have to get used to it. No reason to keep trying other formats when it will be useless practice for seasonal/worlds. Absolutely a terrible thing to say. Very terrible thing to say. And the reason why I think this is a bad mindset to have is because it kind of goes into life as well. If you go into a job that says, hey, you absolutely have to stand all day at this job, no sitting down, why are we forced to not challenge that status quo? Why are we forced to do that? Just because the superiors Riot says so? That's extremely narrow-minded and also just way too kind of like robotic, just being so willing to do whatever other people tell you to do. It's just a very poor way of thinking, because if you think about it, this game is still very much so in its infancy. It has just reached our 1 year anniversary. Woo! 1 year of Legends of Runeterra. Let's go. Shout outs to the devs and everyone who's worked very hard on this game. We love and appreciate you guys. Thank you guys so much. But get back to the point. Yeah, that's just, this game is still very early. It's very early in its lifespan. So to force yourself to feel like we can't still grow and change things, especially for the better, is a very narrow-minded idea. And we have a dev team that's very, very interactive, that very much so listens and sees the discourse that goes down on social media and also on Twitch, on YouTube. They see this stuff, they listen, they're out there. So we need to talk about this stuff and really try to ensure that we're doing what's the most optimal and healthy for this game long term. And yeah, just doing things because they're the status quo or because Riot's not going to change is not the smartest. We are the ones who are playing this game. We are the ones who are putting our time, effort, and energy into this. So we ultimately have a lot of say in what the future direction of this game goes. So I just think it's a poor idea, and someone really emphasized that. Let's see exactly who it was. There we go, right here. So we got it from Morpadorp, and he says, strongly disagree. And I think he had some really, really good points here. So what he says is, back in the day, EVO, the most prestigious fighting game tournament series in the world, turned items on for Super Smash Bros. Brawl, while every other Brawl tournament had them off. Despite this, EVO's rule set did not become the standard, as it was uncompetitive. Items in Smash are extremely uncompetitive. Smash is one of the competitive scenes that I've been most interested in, aside from like the game I'm currently in, and then when I was really into the VGC scene for Pokemon, which is their competitive scene. I love Smash Bros. Competitive scene. It's just so entertaining. It's very unfortunate that COVID and just the pandemic has really hurt that scene, because it's a scene that I just love. So entertaining to watch. And yeah, items are always so uncompetitive. They just too much variance, too much just randomness, and just not at all emphasizing skill over what's best for the game. And yeah, EVO just went with the status quo because that's what Nintendo wanted. Nintendo wanted items on in their tournaments, and Nintendo has continued to have tournaments for Smash Bros. That actually have items on, but the community has continually resisted that. They continue to not have embraced that. So he's like, Riot Lock only becomes the norm in the community if the community stays submissive and acts like it's fine, instead of voicing our concerns and attempting to do something about it. We don't have to tolerate something just because the developer said so. Exactly my point. And thank you so much for this point, Morpadorp. I could not agree with you anymore. And this is, once again, where did this discourse go? Where did these conversations go? Why aren't we still talking about this? Why is this not something that's still being discussed all the time, man? Like, we're seeing tournaments where people are bringing, before we got the nerf to Temple, we were seeing people bringing triple target lineups with Temple because it was a broken card prior to the nerf. Why are we not talking about this more? Why are we so accepting of this status quo that is lacking a lot of creativity and is not emphasizing the amount of amazing cards in this game, the amount of diversity in this game? You okay, dude? Okay, cool. What are we doing? So yeah, I don't get it. And he tried to say the difference is emotional. Tried to say definitely someone else who's a really awesome competitive battler, and I appreciate him joining in on the conversation. But he tried to say the difference is Smash already had a developed competitive tournament scene. LOR does not. I'm not trying to sound rude or disrespectful or disrespect people that put in tournaments, but there aren't only one I know of tournaments that are consistent. Having a one-off tournament with so this is the argument, is that there's not a lot of people who have consistent tournaments week in and week out. So to have an event or a tournament where you're doing something that's different isn't going to change the status quo, because you're not doing that different thing consistent enough to the point where it matters. Whereas Smash has all these tournaments all around the world, and especially all around North America, and they're all doing no items off, so they were able to change things more because they have so much more pull because of the amount of these tournaments that were not embracing the items on that Nintendo wanted. But I just think at the end of the day, we have one of the most interactive, very just willing to hear us out dev teams. Let's take advantage of that. Let's use that to our advantage. Let's discuss with them these things, these concerns, these things that may not be the best for our game. Let's not just believe that we don't actually have any pull. We don't actually have anything we can do. And actually, there we go. All right, and we even had Riot, Rod and Candy Riot, one of the people working with the Riot Legends of Runeterra team, and they said, chiming in as well, Champion Lock, unofficial name, is the first format re-release, but it certainly won't be the last. We're actively looking into additional formats and how we're going to get them in your hands, but I can't go into more details just yet. So literally a dev said that they're considering other things, and obviously we haven't seen anything yet. So I'm trying to bring this discussion more to the forefront just to see where our devs currently stand now on this, because I think it's something we still need to consider. And I would like to see team building matter a little bit more. So if any devs watch this video, thank you guys so much for watching. It really means the world to me that you guys actually interact and are part of our community. I've been a part of communities such as Smash, such as Pokemon, where the dev teams do no interaction. The people who make the rules for the competitive scene do not interact with the populace of players, the competitors. They don't interact with them at all. And you guys are on Twitter chiming in with us, letting us know that you're hearing us, you're listening, and you care about our opinions. So thank you guys from the bottom of my heart. It's a huge reason why I am supporting this game, want to be a part of the community, and will continue to try to make content and grow and support this competitive scene as well. You guys are the real MVP. So thank you, Riot, Rod and Candy. She obviously just said that they're thinking about stuff, but we haven't seen anything since. And this was obviously late February. We're not too removed from that, but I would like to just hear a little bit more as to where the devs stand. We got all these wonderful cards in this game, you guys. We have all these wonderful cards in this game. Let's force people to use them. Let's force people to be creative. Let's force people to actually be able to be a little bit more diverse in their skill set to be able to be the best player in a tournament. I think it would be better for the competitive scene. Would love to know what you guys think. And yeah, definitely I'm excited to hopefully see if this is a conversation that does kind of get a little bit more discourse, and we start discussing this a little bit more. I think it's something that needs to be done. But like I said, that's going to be it for me. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I guess I'll catch you guys in the next episode of Hot Take Thursday, where, as always, once again, the coffee is hot, but the takes are always hotter. You guys have a wonderful rest of your Thursday, and I'll see you guys on Saturday for Create and Replicate. For now, peace out.